What's up, you Midjourney nerds? Rory Flynn, Drew Brucker, we're back in the building. It's a Friday. We're just going to go so deep on this one. I think we're going to hit rock bottom. And what we're going to hit rock bottom on is style reference.
Yes.
This is so important. And, I think more and more people, once they've kind of like grasp it and start to use it, they're just doing amazing things with it. And it seems to be the most popular thing right now, I would say, in Midjourney. And so Rory and I were just talking about this last episode as we were going through the parameters. How do we cover this and all the parameters at the same time? We thought this deserved its own episode, so that's why we're here. And we're going to talk through a lot. Rory, before I get into the agenda for style references, what do you have to say for yourself?
Well, it does need its own episode, number one. Number two, shout out to my dad, who apparently listens to this podcast now. He told me that I need a tan because you're looking way too summery, and I am looking way too like a tech guy, which I never have been in my life. This is noted and heard, Dad. I will get out in the sun over the next couple days because I can see it now, and I'm pale as hell. So that is one thing. But it's this whole situation, dude. Like this sref thing. I don't think people have gone as crazy on it as you can go. It's just when we talk about the end of Midjourney, like the absolute bottom, the pit, you can't get there. You just can't. You can't do everything. You can't actually like figure out how many possibilities there are because it's trillions. It actually might be unlimited now at this point for the output that you can create. I think this is what differentiates Midjourney from a lot of the other platforms, right? We see a lot of these other challengers come up, not saying they're better, worse, anything. It's just like the customization and the creative ability you have on the tool is really, to me, just unmatched. You don't have all these options on the other platforms. I don't know if you feel.
I think that's a great. No, that's spot on because I was just thinking about the way that those are set up. It's almost like with any model where there's a LoRa involved, you almost have to select kind of a style to get a style, right? Like there's no unique style image by image. Right? Yeah. It almost like groups them into a category, which I think is super interesting, right? Because I think those are trained totally different ways. Now, like before we go too deep, man, I mean, you're just kind of like jumping right in here, aren't you? Like,
my bad.
I need you to slow the hell down, man. I was trying to like comment on your vampire situation over there. Dude, first of all, this guy's been grinding. I'm going to give him a break. He also lives in New York. I'm in Atlanta. I also have a little bit of Armenian in my blood. I'm naturally a little bit darker, so tell your dad to take it easy on you. But at the same time, dude, I know you've been burning the candle on both ends. You got a big talk here in Budapest in 2 weeks.
Yes.
2 weeks? Yeah, a week. You're leaving in a week. But big things, dude, and I know you're going to get some sun after that's all over. So
Need to. My dad does like to rib me a little bit because, God, he's retired and he can do whatever he wants. And, golf on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. sounds awesome. I would love to do that, but hey, this is not up for debate anymore. We got to learn Midjourney and we got to talk about Midjourney. So that's where life takes us. And yeah, Budapest, gonna be cool. Super excited. Never been there. If anyone's from Budapest, drop it in the comments. Let me know where to go, what to do. I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'll be there for a couple days. So I'm amped about that.
And by the time that you listen to this, Rory will have not left yet. So definitely take him up on that offer. If you know anything about Budapest, give him some hints. We want this guy to come back safe and obviously have a great time at the same time. So that's important. Let's go through what we're going to cover today. I'm just going to kind of spit this all out. If I miss anything, Rory, just chime in. But we're going to talk through style reference. Like we said, we're going to try to hit rock bottom on this. What is it? How do you use it? Why does it matter? Even some creative ways to use it. We're going to talk about the different style reference versions, which I don't think a lot of people know about. There are actually 4 of those. We're going to talk about style codes. What are those? How do you use those? How do you unlock them? How do you create your own, which I think is kind of interesting. And then style reference, style codes, the difference between those two things, maybe how you should think about using each. We're going to talk about blending style reference. We're going to talk about stacking style reference with an image reference. We're going to talk about using srefs for branding. So like we're literally covering the gamut here. Did I miss anything?
No, dude. I think you nailed it.
Feel pretty good? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think so.
Well, with that said, man, I mean, time's ticking.
Yes.
Let's get right into style reference, dude. Can you tell me what the hell style reference is?
Well, essentially, if you think about, I like to call it the brand of the image. You can transfer that. So if you have something that's super unique looking and you want to take it and put it on another image, basically style reference allows you to reference that style and then transfer it to as many other images as you want. It was great for when it first came out. I think we were all kind of pining for that. We wanted it. We were all trying to hack around it. So typically, to go back, the way that we used to have to do style and keep the style is you had to really understand text prompting and how to really be consistent within your text prompting. So again, we break everything down. Typically, Drew and I, we like to have our little prompt formulas. It's just a guiding sort of light to how to get to the end result. So if you had your shot type, your subject and action, your environment, but you also had your colors, your textures, your technical settings, whether that be a camera or an animation style, whatever that might be, composition, lighting, things like that. You had to keep that back half of the prompt structure very the same. So you could just switch the subject, action, environment. So if you had something like muted colors, leading lines, sharp textures, you could keep that across an entire image set. Now, sref came along, kind of like negated that. You don't need to do that anymore. You can just kind of utilize a style reference and then transfer the aesthetic from one image to the next. So it's a little bit different than image prompting. It's different than seed, but it's also the best parameter update to me that they've added.
I think so. Yeah. I was just about to say that, dude. I think so too, right? And while we're going back to the history lesson behind this, you mentioned including these things very explicitly in the prompt. I think the other way that people were sort of hacking around this too at the time was a lot of image blending. So they might take a subject and then they might take some sort of texture or color or pattern and then combine those two to almost fuse together something that has a little bit of style. The other way that I was doing it quite a bit was basically using image weight. And we've talked about this before, trying to find where that sweet spot is, where it takes enough of the aesthetic, but not necessarily the subject, the action, and everything else with it, right? So you kind of had to scale it down to apply some of that style and aesthetic over to your new image. And so those were some of the loopholes to get around almost anything that we didn't have yet. And that was the same thing that was true with character consistency and all that stuff. But those two come to mind for me. And then obviously we saw, Style Tuner drop, which funny enough, that was when I was in New York last year and you and I got together. It dropped, I think, the day that we got together. And that was sort of like an eye-opening moment too, because that was the intermediary phase between where we're at now with sref and those loopholes. And you and I were just like, holy shit, man. Style Tuner's super cool. You can go through and get all these options. It did have some flaws, but that was sort of like the preview of what we were going to get in the future.
Yeah, RIP to Style Tuner, Midjourney, if you're listening again, which maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Can we bring something along the same lines back, or at least like a preferred option set for old style codes, or something along the lines where we can personalize? Maybe just, can we generate a style reference code from a specific image so that we can transfer it to everything else? I think that would also be great. Here, generate code on this image, then bang, transfer that to every other image. That would be exceptional to me, because Style Tuners to me was the most fun I've had on Midjourney, I think, since I started. It was just oh my God, I can do anything I want. And then it was pretty interesting. I would say a lot of my personalization codes now look very similar to what my style codes looked like, because I was trying to keep them more general to really then adjust colors and adjust different textures and things like that. But this was sort of their update to that. And I don't know if they got some bad feedback on Style Tuner or people just weren't using it, because it just kind of died after 5.2. They're like, nah, we're done. Not going to use it anymore.
Yeah, I wonder what that thought was to just completely cut away from it and pivot directions. I don't think they really gave us a lot of clarity on that.
No, quick hint, if anyone wants to do this, though, we'll get into this probably at some point. But one of my old hacks is I go back into Discord. I turn the version to 5.2. I create some style codes that I like. I come back to version 6.1, and then I use those 5.2 images as style references. So if you're thinking about and you liked that, you can always go back and do it. It's not gone forever. You just have to know how to kind of work the system.
You know what I just remember about style codes that was sort of addicting too was you got back all these different selections where you would pick one or the other or not anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
so each selection sort of created this unique code with it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I think this sort of evolved into what it is today. But I thought that was super interesting too, because you could essentially have a really awesome tune code, and then all of a sudden you deselect one and you got another cool one that's unique.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was like you have infinite options almost within one data set, depending on how good sort of what you got back was. I mean, I thought that was pretty fascinating because it was like, holy shit, like I'm getting some pretty good ones here. The problem was though too, like there was no spot to save them. So
Yeah.
I had to like make a Notion and just kind of store them in there. And I've never opened it since. It's collecting dust. But you just kind of felt like, oh shit, this is a good one. Got to save this, but I have nowhere to put it. This was pre-folders, pre-smart folders.
That was when preferred option set came into. To me, that was like the first time I used it, where I was like, how do I save these and how do I remember them more so? So
See, look at you, bro.
Yeah.
I didn't even use that. So look at me.
Great. It was like I just like whatever the first image was that I generated, it would be like, maybe I was doing it on some scene in Cusco, Peru, whatever. I'm just saying that. And then I would make the preferred option set -- Cusco so I could just remember that. It was like, oh, that's the one I liked. But again, like that was awesome for when you were on Discord. There was a few things, right, that I still miss from Discord, but I will gladly take the experience on the website right now, especially the editor feature. Thank you guys for that. But
hey,
yeah,
while we're here, can we also just point out that now anybody can jump into the Midjourney website? Anybody.
Oh yeah.
We were pining for this. We were pounding the table on this just last week, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Whatever it was. We were just saying it was really you specifically being very vocal about it. You're like, what are we doing?
Yeah, like seriously.
Why are we still doing this with 10 images? And sure enough, it's now available. If you are one of the few that I would say are listening to this but have not used the website, now's the time to do it.
Yes.
You don't need Discord for anything anymore, which I think is like a whole nother conversation. We'll save that for next time. But the barrier to entry now to use Midjourney has never been lower.
And they're slinging free trials again. So
slanging them.
Get in on it while it's free. That disappeared for, I don't know, a year. They used to have them, and now they're back. So I would say no better time. And you can only connect. You can connect through Google. You don't even have to connect through Discord anymore, which I thought was interesting for.
I did too.
Hanging on for so long. Maybe you could do this for a while. I don't know if someone knows that probably, but it's just like, oh, okay. So no more Discord needed. But I mean, how many more Discord users do they need? They have a big base.
That's right.
I get it. I don't want to lose people on Discord. Don't want to lose interaction, the data, the community. It's cool. People will still be there.
Still a good channel for different reasons. But also, I think with this, if you're listening and you have coworkers, right? We've already done a professional potential on using Midjourney for work. Rory and I have both done that. I mean, this is a great time to get coworkers on here with the free trial, with the no barrier to entry to use the website, because this is how you would get things like that expense. This is how you would start to get people thinking about differently with their workflows, their processes, the tools they're using. Midjourney's really not that expensive when you're looking at it from a company budget perspective. So yeah, time's never been better. With that said, I don't want to go down too far of that rabbit hole, Rory. Let's stay on style reference. We talked about what it is, in terms of how you use it. Pretty easy, but also it's easy because it does have the website now. I think what was difficult with Discord was the fact that you almost had to, with image reference and character reference and style reference, like add all these different URL strings in there.
Yeah.
Along with the parameters, along with the prompt. And it was just like your head's kind of spinning at that point. So it was pretty common for me to get errors, I think, at that time if I ever tried doing that in Discord. With Midjourney, it's super easy on the website. I'm just going to pull up an example here. I've taken something from Pinterest. I'm just going to click copy image. I'm going to go over to Midjourney. I'm going to paste this. And if you're not familiar with this, you have 3 really convenient options here. This first one is your default. It's going to default to an image reference. You've got a style reference, which is this paperclip here. And you've got a character reference, which is the silhouette of a person here. For this example, we're going to click style reference, the paperclip. We're going to go ahead and just put in, Rory, give me something, man. Give me something random.
Pink circle on a black background. Minimalism.
What?
I don't know. I'm trying to match that, see if it would actually give you
do-
something that was pretty simple beforehand,
Let's do
and then transfer
pyramid
style.
in the Egypt desert.
That sounds way cooler than what I came up with.
I don't know. I'm just thinking. So let's do like a 3.2 and let's do like a S250. Let's personalize. And then here's where we're also going to think about how we're going to use this. So first step of this is selecting that this is a style reference. What's different from Discord is you do not have to copy and paste the link. This is the equivalent of typing in sref. So I don't need to type that again. All I need to do is type in --SW, which controls how much of that style weight I want to apply. That threshold for style weight is anywhere between 0 and 1,000. The default is going to be 100, which I think is a really good default. So why don't we just leave that as 100? If you do leave it as the default, you don't even need to put that. But for this example, we'll just go ahead and include it. Let's include this at different weights just to kind of show how this is going to return our results for us at the same time. And let's go turbo because we're trying to go through this. Okay.
Let's see what we got.
Is this turbo? This isn't moving fast enough for me, man.
Sometimes you got to refresh it when you do turbo to catch it up. It's really annoying.
Okay, so we've got the results coming back here. Remember, I style weighted 3 different examples here, applying more and more of the style reference as we go through this. So I'm just going to quickly jump through these examples. This is a style weight of 100. Again, our prompt was pyramid in the Egypt desert. Now, what's happening here is with this style reference, it's taking the colors, the aesthetic, some of the texture. And if you really dial this up to a high value, even some of the actual image that I found too, which I don't know that a lot of people necessarily talk about, but I think it's important to note when you're trying to find that sweet spot with style weight. So this is what we've got back with a style weight of 100. This is going to be 250. Right? So you start to see some of that, more of that texture come in. And then this is where you get basically this dialed all the way up. And that looks pretty awesome to me.
Legit.
So only say that to say some of these style references, you need to really play with the value, because if you don't want it to take too much of the image, now this isn't a bad example because this is sort of an abstract thing, but let's just say a person is in here and it's got a lot of colors as well. At some point, it's going to include the colors. At some point, it's also going to include the person with the colors. This would be a good opportunity to run something like permutations to really find wherever that sweet spot is. Rory, let me toss it over to you. Anything you want to add to that or touch on with this example?
No, I think it's pretty good. I think maybe if you wanted to show how to just add a style from your own image library, right? If you wanted to go and just copy that prompt and just like drop another image in, it's so simple to do that now.
So let's do this.
Multiple, yeah.
Like let's just take this. And I think actually let's keep the same prompt, but let's just change the style reference because I think this will give you a really good apples to apples comparison in terms of what this is going to do. For style weight, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do 100, which is the default. We're going to do 250, and we're going to crank this all the way up to 999. I might also do, just for this example, like a lower number like 35. And the reason for that is, like I said, some of these have more sensitivity than others. Let's see what this brings to the fold. Now, this is going to be a much more interesting example from the standpoint of I've got a person in here, right? And this looks nothing like a pyramid in the desert where the other one had like a little bit of similarity to it. So this is a low value of 35. You can see some of those colors coming through. This is your style value of 100 where you see this come through a lot more. Then you get into something like 250, right? And these start to get very trippy. And then you got something like a style weight 999. So, I mean, these are out there, but that's the important part is, one, you can do this with any image you created. So this is a great chance to repurpose things that are already in your library or in your archive rather, and use them as style references. This is also a chance to grab anything from a third-party website like a Google, like a Pinterest, to use those things as well. So I think those are probably the 2 examples that are probably going to work best just for showing you what style reference is and how you're going to use it.
Totally. I think that's good. Also, let me jump in. I'll show sort of the difference here because I think this can be confusing unless you actually see it broken out, which is how do we look at the difference between image reference and style reference. So I think this is a good example of what Drew's talking about with structure. Basically, we have 2 unique images, seal in as an image prompt, what happens when you image prompt is we get this flamingo that sort of looks like the seal, right? Like we took a lot of the seal construction where it's placed in the image, like the colors, and it's kind of like blending the seal and the flamingo together, because why would a flamingo have like these really black feathers? Just be positioned like laying on the sand like this seal is on the rock over here. With image prompting, you're taking over some of the construction of the image. Yes, you will take some of this aesthetic, but also you're going to take some of the construction of the base object or character that's in it. So when you're using style reference instead, it's basically we're just taking this aesthetic and transferring it down. Like we still have the same pink flamingo, but it's in like this more dark black, muted environment. It's a delicate balance. It's probably also solid to take a look at this from a very granular perspective. And, one of the things I love is using low style weights, right? So not going super high, because sometimes I just want a little bit of the image versus a lot of it. This one's a pretty solid example. I used basically the same seed. So everything should be fairly similar to show kind of the progression of stuff. And again, like two radically different images. So use a very simple prompt here where we have essentially this prompt is photo of a woman. Pretty simple, right? We have this eye and this face. And then I use this crazy sref, which is a woman's face with like all this crazy paint on it.
The photos couldn't be more different.
I know. So again, so you can see like where this really starts to influence. When we do this at low levels with style weight 0, right? Like we're just using style weight 0, 35, 50, 65, and 80. These are below the default, which is 100. So you're going to take over some of this image, but not like this full style. So if I like this and maybe I want to transfer some colors or a little bit of the effects, staying under the default can be really helpful, because we'll look at style weight. Again, this is 0, normal image. We go to 35. We get some cool like little shading under the eyes, some real crazy detail in the eye with some of the colors, which is nice. We go to style weight 50. We start to get
even
more.
that 35's dope,
Right? Again, it's just super. Like you don't have to go all the way to this. We can just go to this. It's sometimes you just want to take a little bit over. 65, we get a little bit more. 80, we get some more painting on the face. And then 100, the default, we start to get like this somewhat of a transfer. What Drew did before, and we see what this looks like as we go by. We have 0, then we have our 50, and then we have our default. As we keep going, we get to 200. We're starting a lot more detail. 300, where we're basically almost there. 400, to me, is pretty much transferring the entire style. 500, pretty much the entire style. 600, the entire style. 700, we get a little bit more detail in terms of like the eyes up here and maybe some of the other hands that are now added to the face more. I always see this. I always see this. Typically between like 600 and 800, I never see much of a difference. But when you get up to 900 and 1,000, this is where you can start to see some more like really fine, intricate details, especially, the skin texture and the lip texture and everything, details on the face. So when you pull it back and you see everything, you see the progression from nothing to getting a little bit more. Typically, this is what I always find too, between like 400 and 800. Somewhat similar. That's just my own personal opinion. I don't know if you feel that way. Is that something you notice?
I do. I see the diminishing returns. I don't think there's much of a difference between somewhere in that 6, 7, all the way up to 1,000. Again, I think with most of the parameters that exist, sometimes you can get more accurate results from like a 600 than 1,000, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty common, I think, in some of the things that they do. I love that example, though, because those are two totally different images. And so this is what we're talking about when we're really thinking about Midjourney versus other tools. You can fine-tune that anywhere between 1 and 1,000. I mean, for me, like I have a totally different style than Rory, and I could say, hey, look, there's a sweet spot in there for me. We could use the same thing and get two totally different results from that. That's important to mention because, in the sort of AI image generation world, it's all about, to me, control and driving uniqueness. I don't want things that just anybody else can create at the same time. Like I'm trying to find these pockets or these corners that I'm getting into that maybe other people can't get into, or it's more difficult, to find, just something that makes it unique. Because with the democratization of the creativity, it doesn't feel so exciting when everybody can do exactly the same thing or gets exactly the same results.
100%. We talked about this on a podcast maybe 2 weeks ago. right? It's like, where do we go once we've hit like extreme photorealism?
Yeah.
That's it. Once it hits that peak, like it can't go much further than that. So then we need to differentiate on control, and then we also need to differentiate on creativity. That's what this allows for. And that's what Midjourney allows for, is like you really don't have, there's no end, like we said 5 times already. You can go as far as you want. But if everyone's going to reach this photorealistic standpoint, again, then everyone's stuff is going to look exactly the same unless you have the ability to go and make super creative stuff.
That's why style is important. That's why we're covering it today. That's why personalization is probably right there with style reference in terms of Midjourney's differentiation in the market, right? I mean, the personalization, which we talked about this prior, but the ability to stop thinking, hey, quality is only going to go so far, and start thinking about how do we please people individually? Because we can't please everybody with the same model that does the exact same thing. We have to get into people's interests and their specific style, their visual signature, what they like, different poses, camera angles, colors, contrast, like all those different things that really affect the image. And I've just found, and I know you have too, that like I get to better images much quicker.
Oh, yeah.
And this is just the early stage of personalization with that said. I mean, this just dropped less than 2 months ago. They've already updated it, I think, once or twice. This is going to get better with 6.2. This is going to get better with 7. That, to me, is the super exciting part about all this. I think that was a great example, though. I think the other part that maybe we want to touch on while we're sticking with style reference, 2 things, Rory. I think the style versions, then also I think the thing that you unlocked, which is using style reference in editor.
Yeah.
But the style versions are essentially the different stages of style reference. So when this launched, they had a V1, then they made a second iteration, which was V2, a third, which was basically a build on top of 1, a more vibey, quote unquote, style version, and then 4, which is sort of like the updated version of 2. So there are actually 4 different style versions that you can use when you're prompt. I don't think a lot of people know that, or they talk about it. I don't really see anybody doing like the compare and contrast thing with them either. So maybe just for quick reference for us, we're just going to hop in here and show you how this would work. Now you could run a permutation, which is what we're going to do here for the different style versions. So I'll just run a very simple prompt. Let's just do 3D floating shape. I'm going to take style weight down to, I don't know, maybe let's just do 80 so I don't get any of the girl here. Let's do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's hit run. And we're just going to compare the differences. I think these are going to be pretty minor, but when we're talking about these micro decisions, these controls that you have, like these are all at your expense. I love this SV1 right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is wild. It's like I haven't even run SV1 in a long time.
I'm a big fan of 2, by the way. 2, for whatever reason, always pleased me.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. I love it. Because I play around with this often. I do like these. Yeah, I do like them. I do like going back to when I find something that I really like, I'm sure everyone's hit this, when you hit like that fever pitch when you're just hitting regenerate, and it's giving you heaters every single time. Then I'm like, all right, let's screw around with style version. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, see which ones look better, and then keep going from there. And then even if you like this style version 3, right, you don't have to use it on every single image. You can take that style version 3, one of those images, and apply it as a
That's right.
something else. So
that's why this is endless. I think that's a great point. I mean, this rabbit hole goes really, really deep. I mean, when we're talking about creating your own style reference, like Rory just made a great point, maybe there's something in here that I like, but then I want to use that style, but I like the output better. That's how you would maybe combine those things.
Because like take this, right? Just hit prompt and then hit prompt in style, and then just change it to, instead of 3D floating shape, like 3D floating pyramid, and just see if it looks exactly the same. This is how we test stuff, right? Like this is how you test live. And again, this is how you can make a condensed set if you're doing maybe something like icons or want to do something in that exact style, right? So now we have a pyramid in that style that was just very similar. If you're trying to build things for websites, or you have little, you want to create, again, like this set of maybe innocuous images like this, or innocuous shapes, you can kind of keep it the same with something like style reference. So it brands the image. That's to me, very simple way to like kind of go down a rabbit hole, especially for things like, holding items like this, or website, social media, anything that you're using these for could be super useful.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, we'll get into the brand thing. That's pretty deep as well. But I think that's a terrific example of style reference. We haven't even got into the codes yet, right?
Yeah.
So that's a whole different story about how you could apply style. But style reference, I think, is more malleable because you could take any image. You're not trying to unlock some random code and then trying to find something, which we'll get into brands. But I think if you're a brand, you're probably thinking more on the style reference side because otherwise you're digging for a long time until you find a style code. But Rory, I would love for you to jump into something that you and I were talking about hypothetically on last week's podcast, which was when we were covering the editor, we were wondering, hey, like, could you use style reference in editor? Could you use something like an image reference in editor as you scale out to fill in pixels or change? You didn't waste any time. You went right into that and discovered that you could. And
you can.
I think that's pretty exciting. So I'm going to let you walk us through that.
You guys, is going to be totally random. Let's just see if we can make this happen live here. So you can, Midjourney's not perfect. We're not perfect. So let's see what we can do, right? So we'll use the same example here that we used to show the style weight. So maybe we go to editor. What we're trying to talk about here is maybe we change this to 3x2. And we'll slide this over here. Now, because I was doing style weight 0 to show everyone what style weight 0 does, meaning it doesn't apply any of this, we can probably dial this up to, let's just say, 450. We add some of this into the mix. Now, actually, let me expand this slightly.
There you go.
Yeah, so now we should get something a little bit unique. I'm going to erase some of this black, and we're thinking about this like Photoshop, like layers, right? Like this is going to basically complete a different layer, and we can create almost like a collage, because now I'm going to try to add this style reference in with a higher style weight. So in theory, this should populate something a little bit more colorful in the background. So let's see what happens here. So just like that, we've added something totally different. Now, regardless, we're looking at this from doing this live and seeing random stuff. But again, like that's super unique in terms of what it created, because you can then go and edit this any way you want. I could take this and then try to edit around here. I don't like this. I don't like maybe some of this stuff up here. And then let's take this style weight back down to 90. And even if I wanted to, right, I can take this and use this as an image or a character reference too. But I think, just noticing that you can do stuff like this, which you can't prompt for any of this stuff. I don't even know how you'd even remotely start to prompt this. So we can get really creative with what you're doing here. Again, it might not be the best example, but just showing you how you can utilize a style reference within editor to get some different results. And again, you can start to blend, like if this stuff doesn't look good to you and you want to maybe blend the faces a little bit more, you're just looking at that type of edit right there. Maybe we get rid of some of this
and
stuff.
you could even scale out, drag, the girl on the right more toward the middle, and then maybe her other side of the face starts to fill in with the style too, right?
Yeah, 100%. This is why I think it's so, when we say the options are limitless, this is what we're talking about. Because then you can go and probably add another style in here. Let's say we scaled out, and then we wanted to drop, oh, here we go. Let's do this. All right, so let's just say we wanted to scale this back. Let's add this style in here now. sref paste. We got that in there. Let's go style weight 490, get rid of that, and then submit. So now this should, in theory, create something totally random. Again, we're always talking about building in layers or building in steps. This is one way to really conceptualize it of how that can actually be done. So once we add this, right, now we get this totally unique effect, which you just cannot prompt for something like this. And maybe that's your style, maybe it's not. But again, super cool to be able to sort of start to combine these things. That's fun to me, because that opens up a whole new thing. Because you can do that with image prompting, you can do that with character reference, you can do that with the style codes that we'll get into eventually. So you can build like this infinite sort of scroll almost, or this infinite like parallax sort of effect where you're coming just out and everything is just building around it in layers and editing within. You have it's essentially Photoshop now. Like you can do that without some of the key capabilities.
Let's just say you wanted to leave that black and white, and then you just wanted to change her lips to the style. that could be a perfect example of how you might use it, where it's just a monochrome photo and then you just have that one pop of color, like things like that. So I think that's more like you could really maybe take more of an artistic approach by utilizing that in editor. I don't think either of us know just how powerful that ability is just yet, because it's so brand new and editor just dropped last week. But I do think it's cool that you can use that, and it opens the door to more possibilities, if nothing else.
For building the layers, exactly what you just said about the lips. Let's say you have that black and white photo, you're having a hard time getting the neon lips. Let's just say you went black and white, neon lips. It might be hard to text prompt for that or a style reference for that. I would just go and create a separate image of like close-up of neon lips, and then basically bring that in as a style reference in editor. When you highlight the lips, use that as a style reference. It'll work. I've done that exact example. Instead of trying to do everything in one prompt, you can do it in putting all the pieces together. It's always just like, how do I get to that point?
I love that. One other point on style reference before maybe we move to style codes is you do have the ability to use more than one style reference. Just like with anything else, just like with image reference, just like with character reference, style reference, you can use multiple references to bring on an image, right? So if you've got maybe two contrasting styles, you want to fuse those things together and then apply that fusion as a, right? Like that's a possibility. I've seen a lot of those floating out there too, where it's like, hey, maybe people play with 2 or 3 different codes that they like and they see how they go together. I know when style references drop, that's what I did almost immediately, as I wanted to kind of see, oh, I like this style, this style, this style. Like what happens if I kind of fuse those things together? And you get some great results doing that too. All you have to do is if you're blending those, right, is just put multiple versions of those into your prompt. So we showed you how to drag and drop any image to use the style. You would do the same thing if you're adding more than one.
And then also like within your own images too, right? Sometimes my favorite stuff is a mixture of a black and white and then something super colorful. Like when I'm doing 2 style references, like do something that's super high contrast black and white, and then something that's like crazy neon color or saturated or whatever. And like that blending oftentimes is really soft and cool, and it's not really something you can achieve by text prompting. If you want to get super creative and you want to blend an illustrative style with a photorealistic style, a lot of times you get this nice meshing of both. So you'll have some cool like illustrated elements to your images while still having like a photorealistic type look to it, which to me is always fun because it's just again something you cannot prompt for. It's too hard to do that without style references.
Love it. Why don't we move on to style codes? People have seen style codes quite a bit. Maybe even think they might be 2 different things. I mean, they both are technically style references. One just has an exact code attached to it, whereas the other, right, style reference is just any image you take. It doesn't give you a number, a numerical code or anything like that. It's just copy and paste and dragging it into your prompt itself, whereas a code, you need to list that code out, those numerical digits. There are said to be billions of these codes, up to 4 or 5 billion. So, I'm sure maybe with some of these crazy people out there, we're probably getting close to unlocking all of them, but billion is a big number. I mean, when you really think about it. So I'm really not sure, but style codes are basically unlocked within Midjourney. So if you haven't run this experiment before, you basically have to type in a prompt, --sref, and then you're going to type in random. So --sref space random, and that's going to give you unique code, a random code. The thing to know is you don't have any control over the type of style that you're going to get back. Some of them you're going to absolutely hate. Some of them you're going to absolutely love. There's going to be a lot that you're just like, it's whatever. Just so we get a little bit of visual, let's just kind of show how that would work. It's super, super easy. So I'll just quickly show you how you would go about doing that. You're just going to go into your prompt box, prompt whatever you want, whatever aspect ratio you want. Let's go ahead and take some of this extra stuff out of here. I like to run like a stylized 250. There's no right or wrong there. And then what you're going to do is --sref random. And if you want to unlock more than one at a time, right, you need to be in faster turbo mode to do this, but you can use the repeat parameter, which we talked about last week, and then enter any numerical value between 0 and 40. Now that, again, like we mentioned, does depend on your plan. So if you're on a basic plan, you can't run that higher, I think higher than 4. If you're on sort of like the middle plan, I don't think you can run that higher than 10. If you're on the, what is it, Pro and Mega? You can run that all the
so.
way up to 40. But for this
Yeah.
example, like let's just run 10. I'm just going to go ahead and put in 3D floating pyramid, aspect ratio 1:1 square, stylized 250, sref random, dash repeat 10. Let's go ahead and submit that. This is going to give me back 10 different examples, same prompt. You can now see here on the side that I've got a number, a numerical value attached to each style, right? So the style weight, because I didn't type anything there, is going to default to 100, which I think is like more than enough to test the differences in these. If you really wanted to go to a little bit more extreme as to what the sref uncovers, like you could dial that up a little bit higher to like a 500 or even 1,000. But these are the differences, right? I've got 4 images here with this style reference code. I've got another 4 with a different style reference code, another 4. And these can be anything from like super colorful to black and white, to illustrative, to line drawing, to monochrome, all kinds of different stuff. So this can appeal to everybody, but also you do need to spend some time to find the right ones that speak to you, because sometimes you could go through a whole list and you're just like, I don't really like any of those. So let me run 10 more.
Happens all the time, by the way.
All the time. So if you wanted to keep one, now you've got this code. So if I wanted to take this, I would just click this, and now I've got that code right here. So that's all style codes are, just a different type of style reference. It's in its own category. You know, we talk about things like how do you use style references for brands? You know, I mentioned this earlier, but if you're a brand, you know, you could use a style code. The problem with that is how long is it going to take you to unlock one that feels like your brand? Because you have no control over the color that comes back or the style that comes back. Maybe the faster and more cohesive way to do that is just to take any existing style reference, right? That could be maybe even one single image that you have that represents your brand, and find out where that variable and style weight fits. Or, right, if you don't really want to go that route, like something else that I've done in the past is like just taking something like a brand swatch of colors and then just screenshotting the swatches of the 3 different brand colors and using a low style weight on those. That also really works well if you don't really have an image that kind of feels like you already. So, I mean, there are multiple ways to skin that cat.
100%. Style codes, the one thing that's great about them is that they're totally unique. The one thing that's bad about them is hard to control. That's the, you know, the case in point of it. But they're fun, and they have some really cool stuff if you get into them and you find the right ones. Blending them, to me, is probably the most fun thing. It's just like, what kind of craziness can we come up with? Let's just throw all these things into one image and see, you know, if we can short circuit Midjourney's brain, because I think that to me has always been the most fun. Is like, let's just push this thing to the limit and see where it goes. Yeah, let's try.
Like, do something crazy. Like, you could take a style reference image and a style code.
Yes.
And mix those. Because maybe from the style code perspective, you like that it's a line drawing kind of thing, and then the style reference, it's your brand colors.
Totally.
Now you've got a very unique style. So that's maybe a way that you can incorporate both. So, I mean, there are plenty of options of how you go about doing that for a brand. But again, one of those things with style reference that there is no end to it. You can literally go in any direction that fits your need.
Yeah, and then also with the style reference codes, you can weight them, meaning like, oh, if you put code X and code Y, those two are different. You can have one be like 3 times as heavy versus one times as heavy, meaning like, oh, we want X more of style X versus Y. So, you know, I think it's probably a good opportunity to show that maybe. All right. So I'm in my little sref code folder. I got some hacks for folders too that we can talk about on how to keep these things organized. Let's just say I wanted to blend a couple of these style codes right here. It's pretty unique style. Let's put this in here. The style reference code is 4222 or whatever the hell that is. Let's take my personalize out so it doesn't affect this. Now let's find another style that's like totally random. Like this one. We'll add that. So now you have 2 in here, right? You can run that. And when we get it, it should be a blending of both of those styles. So we have like that really kind of interesting, unique look. And then we have some of the really like grungy street style photography setting. Now here looks like one came through a lot more. Maybe I don't want some of that illustrative stuff to come through. You can go in here. All you gotta do is do : and then add a value. So let's just say we want this to be 1 and we want this to come through more. Let's do 3. This will now be 3. It'll weight this style code 3 times as much as this one. Hit enter. We'll watch this thing kind of pop out here. And it should be more in like the black and white style now with some subtleties of the other piece right now. It didn't even see, it was still heavily influenced by that other one. So we can go even further. We can make this 8-1. So this should be way more in the black and white style than in the colorful style, but we should still have some little aspects of it. So we keep some of this little like illustrative style. It was way more in the black and white now. But if you flipped it, if we went 1 and then 6, we're going to end up with a lot more colorful, like illustrative style, more like this, way more on that scale. So you can play with them. We're going to be way more unique into that style code, how those look. Very, very interesting. Because, I mean, if you guys can go nuts, right? If you wanted to go in here, this is where I say, like, going nuts. This is what I mean. Like, I'll go in here and then just find, all right, I want to add this one. Let's add this style code. And then let's find one that's maybe a little bit less crazy, maybe more minimalist like this. We'll add this sref. And then, let's find one more that we like that we can just drop in here. All right, cool. Let's do like some vintage style. So now this should be totally off the wall. Who knows how this is going to end up? It's totally random. Again, something I'll never be able to prompt for. And it looks like, again, because you guys get to see all the errors when we do this live, I'm going to put the 6. This should essentially blend all of those looks into something that's totally unique. These are all totally radically different. Then you can go play with the weights on each one.
People might be wondering how many of these codes you can blend together as well.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the answer is on that. It's either...
I think it's 6. Maybe. It might be 6 or 4. I can't remember.
We'll double check on that for you guys. I don't necessarily think you need any more than 3, personally. But if you're just like a crazy MFer, I mean, I guess you could.
Yeah. You can get, when you've balanced it appropriately, it can get really good. You can start to take a lot of elements from this. And let me actually pull something up real quick. I'll show you what I'm talking about. When you have them balanced and you have them balanced appropriately, you can take a lot of different things. So bring this bad boy up. So when I'm generating, right, a lot of times I'm looking at, these are 3 unique style codes, right? Like this one's got some art elements to it. This one's kind of more minimalist and like has these sort of geometric straight lines. Then this one's kind of like this vintage sort of like gold chrome look. Now, when you blend those, you'll get some really cool stuff because you get elements, right? You get the element of this cross here and like an illustrative style on his chin. You get like this sharp, like gold vintage style look from this image here. We get some of the structure and the white and red coming from that image. So you can get that. Now, again, I weighted the gold here, this like sharp vintage gold, 3 times as much as I did these two, but we still got subtle elements. Now, if we went 1 by 1 by 1 here, we get a good mix of all of them. Like you get the illustrative style, you get this sort of minimalistic white and like black high contrast. You get some of this sort of gold vintage look on the armor and on like his jewelry and things like that. As you play with it and you start to play with the weights, we go 3 by 3, 3, 1. We get a lot more crazy texture. We get this cross kind of comes through. You can see as we start to blend these and play around with the weights, they all look radically different, but they can be really cool. So
dope.
Yeah. It's the weighting to me is if you find 3 styles that have, somewhat of elements that you like. They don't have to be like, I want all of this. It's maybe I want some of this and some of this. Or I want some of this guy over here with the gold armor and some of this like little illustrative grunge style. That's how you can get the most out of those. Now, I will also say this. This is just a hack now that I'm seeing it on my screen and totally forgot about this. If you want to see what your style codes really look like, I use a mood board prompt. So this is just a little hack. Basically, this prompt here, what I use, it's a multi-panel mood board split into multiple images, including lifestyle images and color swatches. So I'll just take that and put the sref code in it, and then you can basically see what your style code looks like across a number of different images. So you don't have to go and waste a ton of images. How does this look for a person? How does this look for a flower? How does this look for XYZ? So it'll give
did you say little hack?
Just a little one.
Did you say like little, like a little baby hack?
Because
like this is
hack.
Bro, this is dope. What?
So it's sick,
I didn't even know
right?
this.
Yeah, so you can go and like kind of get an idea of what your style code is like at its core. And then it's like, oh, I get a bunch of different images. Like, that's cool, more minimalist,
Sick.
right? This one's way more colorful and liquid. This one's got a lot of illustrations mixed with photorealism.
That's a lot more efficient than running 10 different prompts with the same style code.
Totally forgot about that. Good thing we jumped on there. That was a easy
I
one.
hope y'all stuck around for that, because that is a great, great unlock. I think that just changed my whole process when thinking about maybe how much time or how many prompts I'm spending, ones that I'm not sure about either, right? Like,
yeah.
Because, especially like fast hours, you don't want to wait a long time when you're trying to explore these two. I know I've been putting together like a bunch of these carousels with like 10 styles that you should check out kind of thing. I mean, as I'm going through that, I'm eating up fast hours because I'm trying to run all these different kind of prompts to just kind of see how that's going to play out and see if it is like a worthy style code to show and share and that sort of thing. But I think that is just such a speed up of that process. So damn, love that.
I got tired of burning through my hours for the style codes. I was just like, I got to figure out a smarter way than to do 9 images of one style to see like where it goes from, person to environment to product to this. It's just like, all right, let's just throw it all in one, see if it comes out. It does. Hey, use that to your advantage, guys. That's your, little money saver there if you stuck around to the end.
What else about style codes? Is there anything else that you feel like people should know?
Yes, folders. There's a way to organize them, because I know I'm bad and I get lost. You can create smart folders. We've gone over this before in the past, but typically, like if you want smart folders and you want to either one, keep specific codes together, you can filter it by code and keep the code in each little folder. Or if you want to just work on one thing to have all of your style codes in one place, use something like a standard prompt for your srefs, right? So use like, I don't know, photo of a ninja, and then use your sref codes. Just always start with that one so they all filter into it, and then you can filter a smart folder by, the prompt photo of a ninja. I also do it in rooms too. There's rooms.
You told me about that.
Yeah, specifically for just generating style codes so that I can just go back in there, create your own personal room and go in there and do that. Because, they get lost. If you're generating like we are, it's like, I don't know, a couple hundred images a day. It's like, all right, I might never see that again. Might never come across it again.
Yeah.
So many.
Also, like one other cool thing I think worth mentioning if you're trying to find codes, because I've had this problem where, I'm unlocking multiple style codes at the same time. And then again, like with that example where I unlocked 10, 3D floating pyramid, I might want to run a different prompt on all 10 of those again, just to get further clarification on, do I like this style code? Now, your whole mood board sort of effed this whole thing up. Thanks for that. But at the same time, like you could copy and paste your --sref code and put that into your search tab. And you could also easily find all the ones that you've done that way. If you don't want to do a folder, or if you're just in the exploration phase of style codes, that's a quick way to like just filter through them. If I'm like exploring multiple codes at the same time and I don't want them to get lost.
Good point. Hey, half of this is organization, and just all this stuff is lost to me. My 99.9% of the images, I know where the good ones are that I really like, but the other stuff, you ever go back and you find stuff from like a couple months ago or maybe a couple weeks ago, and you're like, how did I overlook that? Because that's seriously solid one. What was I thinking?
A lot.
Meh.
I feel so bad that I don't go back past like 6 months now, like to look at anything. And I know there's good stuff sitting in there that I could, try to rerun the prompt on 6.1 or take a style from or whatever it is. Yeah, it's unfortunate. They're just collecting dust.
There's gems, man. There really is. I love looking back. Every once in a while when I'm doing like presentations or something, I'll go back just deep to see if I can find something a little bit more tailored to what I'm talking about in the presentation. Maybe I already have an image like that. And I'll type in random, some random thing like bullseye or whatever, and I'll pull up, damn, I did this in like V 5.2 and it's dope. Like, let me rerun this in 6.1, see what happens. Then I waste time and procrastinate and don't get the presentation done because I'm like, oh shit, this is so, like a squirrel chasing a nut. But yeah, I mean, that stuff is just how many actual images there are just sitting there. It makes me upset that I'll never see some of them again.
Yeah, I mean, organization is something they're going to have to circle back to. I know that's come up on office hours quite a bit. They know about that. Like that's something they know they need to update, but they do have bigger things on the agenda. They've sort of stressed that. I get that.
Yeah.
But right, like that part of it, it is getting overwhelming now because you almost have to have a really good system in place and one that you haven't changed to efficiently go back to past images. What I mean by that is like when I first started ranking or liking images, that started when they had those 5 emojis, right? Where I was using like the far right one as a 5-star, whereas I'd use maybe like a 3 as like like I don't really care for it. And you could sort by that. And I thought that was a pretty efficient way to say, okay, these are my gems. So anytime I want to do a carousel, anytime I want to do something that's for a project where I'm showing this externally, I'm going to go just to my 5s. Those are the ones I really want to use, maybe my 4s. And then, that process sort of changed when they took that away. It was, you can like an image, you can upscale an image, and you can sort by either. But I sort of changed my approach to, okay, every image I like, I'm going to upscale. And so I filter that way. The problem with that is, that probably eats up a lot of extra time, sometimes fast hours that I probably don't necessarily need to use.
Yeah.
But that's how I filter through now to find the really good ones. So I say all that to say, like, organization is definitely a problem because we've all created great images that we forget about if you've been using Midjourney for any longer than 6 months, I would say.
Midjourney also, if you're listening, hey, this is just another request. If sometime in the future, not saying right now, sometime in the future, we could have a reverse image search sort of feature in there, that would be great. So I could just take old images that I have from wherever, and I know I'm trying to find them. I don't remember the prompt. I don't remember when I did it, whenever. If I could just screenshot that, drop it into the search bar, and it would just be like, bing, come up within my folder of somewhere, or at least give me things that looked like it. That's just an idea. Just a really small one. We'll see.
I like that idea.
Yeah. We'll test the waters.
I like that idea a little bit. Well, I mean, maybe the only other thing that we haven't really touched on is stacking sref with something like image reference. Do you ever do that?
All the time.
How do you think about whether you use one or the other or both, right? You can use both and they do different things, but you also can use one or the other and kind of cross over this threshold where you can kind of treat image reference, especially like a style weight to some degree, because we talked about that at the beginning. It was sort of like a little bit of this loophole. How do you decide which direction you're going to go in?
Yeah, most of the time it's depending on if I'm getting the structure correct. Let's just say I'm creating an avatar of myself and I want to have myself, but I also want to have like a specific style. So maybe I want it like in that style of that crazy face painted girl from earlier in the episode. I will put myself in as an image reference first, a picture of me, so I know it'll guide the construction and make it look like myself. Then I will also put the style reference in of maybe like that girl, and I'll either go on the low side or the high side, depending on how much I want it to look like that. Image weight, we'll get into this probably in another episode because it deserves its own one. That one's gotten more sensitive, so probably, like the IW 0.5 through like 0.8, to me, typically keeps construction of the image, or at least like the base details.
Yeah.
And then utilizing, style reference of whatever other image I'm trying to utilize, plus either a low style weight, like 50 through 90, or if I want a lot of it, I'm going up high. So, 500, 600, 700. So, yeah, I do it all the time, actually. I love it. And then sometimes I'll just rip, style and image prompt just to see what happens.
Yeah,
so
same.
Just click all the buttons.
Click all the buttons, run it. One other question. I think we answered this, but this has come up a few times. Can your brand create a style code? No. Your brand can create a style reference, right? We kind of talked about that. So hopefully by now you've understood that style codes are something that has to be unlocked. It is random. You can't control it. There's no way to filter through or do anything like that. Now you could go find like a third-party site. I'm sure somebody's done it. In fact, I think I may have seen it somewhere that they've compiled all these codes and maybe they have an option to filter through some things.
Yeah.
Then you might be able to identify a code quicker in that case. But again, you're going to have to go off platform for that. You're going to have to find that site if it exists. But that's one way you could go about doing it. Again, the faster way, at least right now, to do that is to take any style reference image or images and create it that way versus a code.
Totally. Let me show this. We've done this for a long time with Midjourney. It's how do we take one image and turn it into 1,000, really is kind of like the idea. So essentially, like if you're looking for a brand, right? Like we utilize Red Bull as an example here. We took this original image from Red Bull public domain site, and then just to utilize it as an example, a lot of times sref works very well in combination with a text prompt. So we'll take like this image, we'll run it through either Describe or ChatGPT to pull out sort of like these categories: photo type, subject, action, environment, color scheme, lighting, composition, technical details, modifiers, right? Like technical details being like camera shot, like, you know, camera types, aperture, things like that. We can basically build like a form prompt. And really from there, what we're looking for is the color scheme, the lighting, the composition, technical details, and some of the modifiers. So this is like your brand of your image here. Then you can just change the photo type, the subject, and action in the text prompt and utilize this image as an sref, and then you can build it out in any way you want. So like we can take that image of the F1 car, then we could change it to be in a different position. We can, you know, change it into a skier, a motorcycle, a dune buggy, a race car, or dirt bike, whatever, while keeping the aesthetic because we're using the aesthetic from here. So that's where it can get really important. And then when you can really text prompt and use style reference, you can start to build out full, you know, visual storyboards. You can go from one thing to the next, right? This is all basically built. Everything is built off of this image, this one image here. You can go and create an entire story with one image. It's all based on style reference and text prompting. Same thing here, right? Like all based off one image of these boots. We can go and then build an entire story off of it. So again, style reference is the unlock for consistency and branding. If you're looking to do that, you have to. If you master it, you'll master keeping everything like super clean, super precise.
This was going back to the original episode and the inflection point of why Midjourney resonated so deeply with us and we became obsessed.
Yeah.
Mine was discovering this in real time. This was pre-sref, but working for a brand in a niche category, had no branding, no existing images in the niche that looked any good. How do you create visual representation or visual signature rather of your brand without going into stock or hiring a photographer? I mean, there was no option to do that. And so if you're trying to maybe think about using Midjourney for your brand, using a style reference like we're talking about, those were some great building blocks you just touched on. And for me, like when I was going through that process, it was thinking about who's our ICP, like who's our ideal customer? What are they, ideal customer profile? How old are they? What gender are they? What ethnicity? What do they wear? Where are they at? What locations? What kind of lighting? And then what kind of camera angles am I trying to utilize to tell different parts of that story? And so it was a lot more trying to build that from a text perspective. But if you've got brand guidelines, start there. Start to identify these things about like values that you represent as a company, some of the mood and characteristics of your brand, and start to build that out that way, right? So you could start with a style reference. You can use that text modification and those variables to stack on top of that to arrive at something that's very unique and very much your own. And so that really is the unlock from a branding perspective, because essentially what you can do is build this bottomless library of images that anybody in your organization could grab. Anybody on your team. Like for me, it was a marketing team, right? So if we're thinking about standing up social media, ads, blogs, emails, slides, external slides, swag, which was part of the example that I gave in episode 1. Now anybody can have access and grab these images. I mean, just think about how much time that saves you. You don't have to scramble at the last minute of like, let me find the perfect image for this. And then it kind of looks like us. Now you've got this thing that you could replicate in perpetuity, and it is bottomless. And so I think that really is the unlock. If you're thinking about this from a branding perspective, that is huge for an organization, or it's huge for a client. If you're an agency and you're thinking about this from a client perspective and you're going through some sort of brand redesign or brand identity, this is a great example of how you could use it for that.
100%. It's just creativity, right? It's whatever you need. If I wanted to create that picture of Big Boy behind you, I could just screenshot this and use it as a style reference. And then bang, I have something very similar.
Yeah.
I love it, man. It's awesome. It's so good.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we want to cover with style reference, dude? I mean, we kind of banged through a lot.
We hit a ton. I mean, again, I probably do this for 2 hours on just style reference alone because there's so many ways to go with it.
I mean, the other thing is we could just dig into more visual examples and really hold your hand through this. But hopefully, this provides a solid foundation for both beginners and people that have already used this plenty of times. So hopefully there's some value to grab across the board. I think, where we go next, we still need to go into image reference. We still need to go into character reference. We've got 6.2 on the horizon coming up here. Rory, yes. I heard something the other day on Office Hours that they're not sure whether V7 or 3D's coming first.
What? Whoa. What?
What? Yes.
Holy. I saw NVIDIA drop some crazy 3D stuff, so I don't know if they're like the pressure's on. But, hey, man, I've seen... Everyone always talks about the hot wars, the competitions, right, between all these image generators. Flux, you saw, just got introduced into Creo for, as their base image generator model. To me, Midjourney still allows for a level of creativity that's not available on other sites. It's interesting. They just keep, we said, keep going their own direction. And if they're going to drop 3D, game on. Again, every other week.
No VC money, no investors. Nothing. They don't have to go any way they don't want to. They can pivot on a dime. That agility is super important, I think, given this particular landscape, because maybe these VC-backed companies, these larger companies, they want video. They want 3D. They want it as fast as possible. They want the hype train, all of those things. Midjourney really could keep focusing on these really unique aspects that none of these other ones have. Like we mentioned style reference, we mentioned personalization. Those are unique to Midjourney. Midjourney's got plenty of those things that give you those micro controls. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens and what comes out of that.
I have a feeling if we're looking at, I don't know if you watched the video from NVIDIA.
I haven't. I just saw the carousel. NVIDIA video, NVIDIA video, NVIDIA video. But I can't say personalization or operationalization.
So. Hard, very hard. But I think it was very interesting the way they constructed it of like how you're going to be able to build within the world. It was like step by step. So I was, I'm thinking in terms of how Midjourney is going to roll this out from like a UX perspective. And, looking at it, and it's basically they were generating like an environment, and then you were generating like individual things to put in the environment. So it was very like layer based and not necessarily like one shot prompt, bang, here's everything, and then you can go control within it. It was like you were creating each thing piece by piece, which is more so along the lines of how traditional 3D design works. I mean, there's way more layers attached to it than that. But I would think it could look like that, or Midjourney could just flip us on our head and we could just generate an entire 3D scene and then go in and edit. So I don't know how it's going to look, but I'm excited for that one. Ruin my life for a couple weeks when it happens.
Bro, I mean, shut it down. I will take a staycation for a week when that happens. I will lock myself in this room and I'm just going to go in on 3D. I mean, to have the ability to do that without any formal training, just is mind-blowing to me that we're here right now. And obviously the competition, look, we love Midjourney. The competition speeds these things up. Yep. It raises the bar in terms of the quality that's the benchmark. So I think this is a good thing for all of us.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. I think video, I don't know. I don't even know what it's going to look like at this point. I don't even know if they have to focus on it at this point. They probably do at some point, but I mean, unless it's going to be as good as the stuff that's available now, I wouldn't be like using it, to be quite honest. So it's interesting. I don't know how I feel about the video side of it yet, unless they come out and just
they got to be thinking about something at least a few steps ahead, because by the time that it rolls out, it's going to evolve since then, right? So like, where are those steps ahead? What does that look like? I mean, the word they keep using, or the phrase rather, is open world simulation. Yeah. You think about that word coupled along with 3D and video, sounds pretty unique. Sounds like something we've never seen, probably never really imagined vividly before, which kind of, again, feels like one of those moments in time where it's just like, I'm going to remember where I'm at when this drops.
Yeah, so let's put a pin in it. We'll see where it comes back. We'll reference back to this episode when it happens.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Hey, anything else you want to say to these nerds before we get out of here?
Appreciate you guys hanging out. Like and subscribe, please.
All right, guys. We'll catch you in the next one. Have a great weekend.
Awesome. Later, dude.